Hey guys, I don't want to think about what I'm going to say too much. I'm going to try and treat this as if I was in, I don't know, an AA meeting or something like that. Suffice it to say, it is, as we were saying in Coffee Moaning earlier this morning, it's a really, really tricky time for lots of people in very different ways, Christmas. It's a difficult time, remember this, it's a very difficult time for anyone who's struggling with food issues. Whether it be a sort of overeating issue or an undereating issue, whatever the sort of eating disorder is, Christmas is a difficult time because so much of what's going on is involved with and sort of circulates around and pivots around food and eating, and actually eating too much. It's a huge time of celebration. And the problem with things like food, unlike alcohol, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, is that you have to eat something. It would be like saying to me, you mustn't drink, but you have to have a glass of vodka every day. And that's the connection really with alcoholism, and that's the connection between all kind of addictions or isms or mental health problems or disorders, whatever you want to call them. So Christmas is a time of overindulgence, and it's a time of overindulgence in every single way. It's a time of overindulgence in terms of presents, in terms of food, as I've said, and especially in terms of alcohol. We've talked an awful lot on the channel and on Instagram about how it's a time of year that's a particularly challenging time of year for anyone who doesn't want to drink or anyone who wants to drink less, because it's not just a case of being dependent on or using the alcohol to kind of help with your feelings. It's a time where relationships come under strain. It's a time for reflection. And sometimes one of the problems with not drinking is that you have to sit down and sit with your emotions. And in many regards, because everyone stops work, not everyone stops working, I recognize that, but the vast majority of people do stop in some capacity at Christmas. And so it becomes a time of reflection. It especially becomes a time of reflection on the year that's passed before. All your thoughts start to move towards the year that's coming. So the passage of time is a key part of Christmas too. And so there are some strategies that I use when I know that I'm struggling in a day. And this is as a sidebar to say an issue like my bipolar, for which I'm on all sorts of medication to help with that. And I have to confess, I do think the medication is ironing me out. I'm inclined to fewer dips, though I still have them. Obviously, I don't record them. But the highs, I get occasional highs, but the downside is that I don't have as many what I call mania highs, because they can't operate the meds in such a way that you have fewer lows and more highs. That would be joyful, wouldn't it? Why can't they? It's like, why can't they make food that's bad for you? Why can't they make food that's good for you taste like food that's bad for you? Because then we'd all eat food that was good for you. Anyway, why can't they make drinks that have the same effect on you as alcohol, but they're not alcohol? But then, of course, if they had the same effect on you, it would be alcohol. It would be doing the same thing as alcohol. Because why do we do all these things? Why do we all overindulge? Why do we go the extra yard in every single way at Christmas? It's in order to run away from ourselves. It's in order to hide from ourselves. So some of the strategies I use over Christmas really revolve, especially at Christmas, around just within the family. I'm only talking within the family or amongst your friends or what have you, and if you're on your own, towards yourself, but it can also be towards strangers and others, is to be of service. I think the most important thing that I've lifted and has impacted on me from Alcoholics Anonymous and other 12-step programs that I've been to to Cocaine Anonymous, I've been to Codependency Anonymous, I've even been to Overeating Anonymous once or twice, because food is a massive problem for me too. So being of service is, you wake up, you feel like shit, you're in a crabby mood, you've got family, or you've got a partner, or you've got a kid. The last thing you want to deal with is any of them. The first thing you probably do is present in a moody sort of fashion. You might be a bit aggravated, you might be a bit scratchy, what have you. You can't help what mood you wake up in. You can't help that you've woken up in that mood. You're not willfully saying, I'm going to wake up in this mood. But once you've woken up, after say half an hour or so, you are in charge of how you present to other people to some degree, unless you're experiencing some kind of acute mental health disorder of some sort. For example, before I was on my meds, my bipolar, if you'd said to me, pull yourself out of it, change your mood, whatever, I couldn't have done. If your stress is around, say, for example, the social activities that are happening on that day, I'm having to go and see family who I don't get on with, I'm having to put on a brave face for the in-laws, oh my God, I'm meeting a siblings coming over that I can't stand. Being of service is the very thing of putting other people first, almost excessively putting other people first. How can I walk into this environment? And I often use the thing of a doorway. Every time you go through a door or pass over a threshold, something new is asked of you in that new room or in that new environment. And the best thing you can do when you walk into that environment is be of service. If you're a bit shy and you don't like eye contact and all that kind of stuff, just ask whoever's in charge of that room, what can I do to help? How can I help the situation? If you see someone who's perhaps on their own or a bit lonely, it might be an older member of the family, go and sit next to them. Go and ask them about their day. Ask them how they're feeling. Ask them about their year, what have you. Being of service really helps. It will help you because as you do more of it, you feel better about yourself. So there is a selfishness involved, and there's a huge amount of selfishness in staying well and in thinking of others. So being of service is a really useful tactic. Faking it to make it is another one where you just almost artificially put yourself in a good mood. And I sometimes do that by going somewhere and just jumping up and down. Often my workouts do it. Exercise is a really good way to do it. But I mean, on Christmas Day, who wants to do exercise? So I don't know, just go outside and go, "Wah!" Do all of that sort of stuff. Sort of waggle your head around, shake your arms about and all that kind of stuff and go, do you know what? Do you know what? Feet firmly on the ground. I'm just going to fake it. And sometimes the act of faking it lifts you. It lifts you, it's kind to everyone around you, and you'll get through. In terms of drinking, if you're someone who's wanting to reduce your drinking or stop your drinking, or you have stopped your drinking like me after 18 years, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm 17 years sober now. And I get really nervous about Christmas. It's really tough. It's really tough, not just the substance, but also being around people. So, for example, we've got a Christmas Eve do today. And most people there, most adults, are going to drift towards drunkenness at some point. And why the bloody hell can't they? If I could, I would. I blew it for myself. I had too much, and I now have to, in order to stay well, abstain from drinking myself. But for those around you, it's very hard, isn't it? So my advice would be, if there's anyone there who's not drinking as much, sit alongside them. If people are getting too drunk, have an escape route. Have something that you need to go out of the room for or go somewhere else for. Or if you're visiting family, if you know that you're going, say, somewhere for 4 o'clock and they're all going to be annihilated drunk or too drunk for you to be able to connect with by, say, 8 o'clock, park some reason to leave. You can always stay longer. If you're finding it all right, you can always stay longer. But I often find in most social situations, if I offer myself, or if I have in my head an escape route, and within the family, that might be, having some work I need to do in another room. If it's getting too much, I'll sidle off and I'll come and do some editing, or I'll do some writing, or I'll get ahead on some project or something. That's really good too. But there's no two ways about it. It's a really challenging and tough time. There are all sorts of helplines and services that can help you. Alcoholics Anonymous, all of the 12-step programs for different issues. If you're struggling with your food, if you feel like you're binging, if you're losing control around food, again, Overeaters Anonymous have a helpline, and there are many helplines on many different charities. Watching something like this, just knowing that you're in the same space as someone else is a huge help. For me, doing this chat now with you reminds me of some of the things that I use or have used in the past, and it's almost like re-nudging a part of your brain into action, or oxygenating your brain and firing up all the kind of brain cells going, yeah, I haven't been of service enough actually this week. Oh yeah, I haven't faked it to make it enough this week. So even the act of now sharing this with you is firing up my brain and going, yeah, okay, I can do that. In terms of aloneness and loneliness and how that works, how that sort of manifests itself in terms of, how can you find a solution to that? That's what I mean. The only thing I could say about that is you can be like me in the heart of a family setup. And I don't want to share about any other family members, but someone else, very close to me feels like this. You can be very much in the heart of things, but you can still be very alone. So I would avoid the idea or the thinking that everyone who's with someone is feeling better, FOMO, whatever it is. It's not true. It just isn't true. And sometimes even the most gregarious and out there and upbeat and show-offy person inside is under an enormous amount of duress and stress to stay like that. And that's quite a lonely place to be as well. NADIA often seems like she's the busy one, the entertaining one. She's cooking, she's keeping everything going to some extent, though I do that too. But she's also very much in her own stress, in her own space and on her own. We all are essentially on our own in our own heads. So if you are literally on your own, that's not to say it might not be nicer. You might be missing a family member. You might not be able to get to them. You might have, struggles with social interaction. I do. I have moments of feeling incredibly lonely and incredibly alone. But by not going online and just looking at all of these perfect images, as NADIA said recently on one of our coffee moanings, all these idyllic images of people's lives, there are seconds before it and there are seconds after these images of perfection that are totally imperfect. These are artificial images. So don't be drawn into thinking, I'm not this, I'm not that. Don't be drawn into comparing and contrasting you and yourself to others. It just doesn't work. The long and the short of it is, it can be a great time, but predominantly for a lot of people, it's a batshit crazy time. A time of struggle, a time of white knuckling, a time of relationships buckling, coming under pressure. I'd say sometimes if you're on your own, you can avoid a whole lot of shit. You really can. But the main thing I want to say is you're not alone. You're not alone in feeling these things. You're not alone in struggling with these things. Try and keep yourself in a safe space. Try and take stock at every sort of half an hour to 45 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour. Take stock. Where are you at? How are you feeling? Take some time out for yourself. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for others is to be really selfish and look after yourself for a moment. Take yourself out of a room if things are getting a bit heated. Take yourself away if people are getting too drunk. If you're, again, around the drink thing, try not to park yourself right alongside the alcohol if you struggle with the substance. I don't struggle with the substance. I more struggle with the people who've got the substance in them when they've gone too far. I quite like being around people who are a bit tipsy. But if you struggle with the substance and you're worried you're going into an environment where everyone is drinking, maybe reconsider, or maybe talk to someone there and ask them to be a bit more considerate about the alcohol around you. It's always worth asking. That's the hoovering going on. It's Christmas Eve here, and we're about to get ready. Believe you and me, I'm going to have my struggles around drink. I'm going to want to take the edge off things a lot. I'm going to feel alone at many times during the day. I'm going to feel misunderstood. I'm going to try and fake it to make it. I'm going to try and be of service. But everyone is stressed at Christmas, everyone. So please don't sit there thinking you're the only one going through what it is you're going through. Everyone is going through hell as much as some are going through joy on Christmas Day. And on that note, stay strong, stay safe, and take 1 minute at a time. They often say 1 day at a time, but sometimes it's 1 minute at a time, 1 second at a time. That's fine. You deserve it.